This is Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Independence Day.
कि आने वाले एक वर्ष में 1 करोड़ युवाओं को एआई स्किल के लिए ट्रेनिंग देने का हम काम करेंगे.
We are talking about AI. Meanwhile, this is the condition of a government school in India.
भट्ठी जलेगी, बच्चे यहाँ टाट पे बैठ के पढ़ाई करेंगे.
पाणी नाही वाटेल नेमकी स्पीड केली नंदी झाली पाणी नहीं.
जर्जर स्कूल भवन पर पानी टपक रहा था, जिसके बाद इस तरह से तिरपाल लगाकर बांस के सहारे किसी तरह पानी को रोका जा रहा है.
Your child not having access to a good government school could actually be illegal. I'm not kidding. It is not just a failure of governance, it could mean the government is failing to fulfill what the law itself promises your child. Have you ever read the Right to Education law? Not just heard about it, but actually read what it says. And if you haven't, you should watch this video till the end. We know that education is important. We know that children should go to school. But do we know what the government is legally supposed to provide once a child enters that government school? Do we know who is responsible when a school has no teachers, no drinking water, no toilets, or when 5 classes are made to sit together in one room? And let me tell you, these are basic facilities promised, I repeat, promised to the children of our country under a law. We are demanding accountability from the government. Like basic accountability, because somewhere inside this law are promises made to every child in this country, promises that many of us don't even know exist. We all know that the Right to Education Act guarantees free and compulsory education for every child between 6 and 14 years of age. But the law is not limited to just this one sentence. There are specific responsibilities, duties, rules, everything is clearly defined in this law. And yet, the people responsible for fulfilling these obligations, who are terribly failing in their duties to provide decent and good government schools, remain unaffected and untouched. Because in our country, only citizens are expected to follow the rules, abide by the law, and get punished for breaking it, while the government, bureaucrats, MPs, and MLAs, people responsible for ensuring the development and facilities guaranteed under the law, remain unaffected. Why is there no action against them when they fail to fulfill their responsibilities? The first thing we need to understand is this: education is not a charity. The Act places an obligation on the government, be it state or central or union territory administration, to provide free and compulsory elementary education and to ensure admission, attendance and completion of elementary education from class 1 to class 8. Remember the word obligation. Not a favor, not a scheme that can simply be advertised during elections, not something children should feel grateful for receiving. The law places a responsibility on the government. And if a child is sitting at home because there is no accessible school, if a child drops out because there are no facilities, or if a school exists only on paper but cannot provide a meaningful learning environment, then it is the responsibility of the government. But a school is not just a building with a board outside. You cannot call a room with a blackboard a school. The law defines what and how a school needs to be. The Right to Education Act or RTE Act places responsibility on the government to provide infrastructure including school buildings, teaching staff and learning equipment. The provisions mention an all-weather building, classrooms, an office or head teacher's room, separate toilets for boys and girls, and safe and adequate drinking water and barrier-free access, especially for children with disabilities. Barrier-free access means that a school should be designed and equipped so that all children, including children with disabilities, can enter, move around, participate and learn without facing physical or other barriers. It should have ramps for using wheelchairs, safe and accessible entrance and corridors, appropriate facilities for children with visual or hearing disabilities and learning materials. It also promises a separate kitchen to prepare midday meals, a fencing or a wall surrounding the school. But the reality is very different. We see a school without proper classrooms, 5 classes squeezed into a single room, one teacher teaching students from multiple classes at the same time, no separate toilets, no safe drinking water, and then we expect these children to compete with the rest of the world. Sorry, but the blame to make India's children's future bleak goes to the government. The government, which includes local authorities, ministers, teachers. You are not just denying them quality education, you are denying them the chance to believe that they are capable of competing at all. I don't even need to show you. The internet is flooded with videos of government schools where children from different classes are made to sit and study in one single room with a single teacher teaching all of them and all the subjects. But do you know what the law says? For classes 1 to 5, the RTE Act lays down clear norms for the number of teachers required. If a school has up to 60 students, it must have at least 2 teachers. 61 to 90 students require at least 3 teachers. 91 to 120 students require at least 4 teachers. 120 to 200 students require at least 5 teachers. If there are more than 200 students in a school, there should be 1 teacher for every 40 students. These aren't just recommendations. These are the standards prescribed under the RTE Act. The Act also requires governments and local authorities to ensure that the prescribed pupil-teacher ratio is maintained in every school. But who suffers when these rules aren't followed? The students. Teacher recruitment scams happen, exams are cancelled, appointments are delayed, and even when teachers are appointed, some may not report to school regularly or on time. Who was responsible for filling those posts? Who was supposed to ensure the student-teacher ratio? The law also prescribes that a teacher should work for 45 hours a week. That works out to an average of about 7.5 hours a day over 6 working days. There is another important point. The law doesn't only talk about getting children into a school. Education is not just about admission. You cannot simply enroll a child, put their name on a register and declare mission accomplished. Local authorities are also assigned responsibilities, including maintaining records of children up to the age of 14 within their jurisdiction, monitoring admission, attendance and completion, and monitoring the functioning of schools. In fact, the law also says that if a child is from a migrant family, he or she should not be denied admission because of lack of documents. Attendance and completion are not just numbers for a government report. They are part of what the authorities are supposed to ensure. So who is actually responsible? And this is where accountability becomes important. Because when something goes wrong in a government school, the blame often disappears into a maze of departments. The school blames the district blames the state says it needs more funds, the center points towards implementation, but the RTE Act distributes responsibilities. The central and state governments have a shared responsibility for funding the implementation of the Act. Well, the state government is responsible for providing its share of funds for implementation. The central government also has responsibilities relating to curriculum, teacher training standards, and technical support. So if you are blaming the state and central government for the poor education facilities, well, they are exactly who needs to be blamed and held accountable for. The appropriate government has duties including providing education, neighborhood schools, infrastructure, teachers, learning equipment, and monitoring quality. And local authorities have responsibilities too. They are supposed to provide education, ensure schools are nearby, provide infrastructure and teaching staff, monitor schools, track children's admission and attendance, and ensure the functioning of schools within their jurisdiction. So accountability cannot end with one teacher standing in front of a classroom. There is an entire administrative structure responsible for making a school function. And when it doesn't, we need to know who was supposed to act. Imagine everything is sorted out. The infrastructure, attendance, teachers, and the school building. Now comes the crucial aspect, the quality of education. And what I'm about to tell you, think back and see if you have ever come across anything like this in any government school. The Act says that the curriculum and evaluation process should focus on the child's all-round development, including their knowledge, potential, talent, and physical and mental abilities. It also calls for child-friendly and child-centered learning and says that children should be free from fear, trauma, and anxiety. The condition that they are made to study, that is enough to give any child trauma. In other words, education isn't supposed to be just about memorizing textbooks and passing exams. The law envisions a learning environment where children can actually grow, explore their potential, and learn without fear. The schools are also supposed to provide a playground for children. But here is something more people should know. Under the RTE framework, schools are required to have a school management committee with elected representatives, parents or guardians and teachers. At least 3/4 of its members are supposed to be parents or guardians with representation for disadvantaged and weaker sections, and 50% of the members are to be women. And what is this committee supposed to do? It can monitor the working of the school. It can prepare and recommend a school development plan, and it can monitor the utilization of grants received by the school. Think about what that means. A government school does not belong to a politician, it does not belong to a bureaucrat. The people whose children study, they are supposed to have a role in monitoring how that school functions. They should know what is the school's development plan, how many teachers are sanctioned, how many posts are vacant, what facilities are missing, what grants has the school received, and where has that money been used. And if the promises under the law are not met, who should you go to? The Act also provides a mechanism for grievances. A person or even CJP members or you and I, if we have a grievance relating to a child's right under the Act, we can make a written complaint to the local authority having jurisdiction. The local authority is required to decide the matter within 3 months after giving the parties an opportunity to be heard. An appeal can then be made to the State Commission for Protection of Child Rights or the prescribed authority. The National and State Commissions for Protection of Child Rights also have a role in examining safeguards and inquiring into complaints relating to a child's right to free and compulsory education. Where are all they in all of this School Theek Karo movement? Why is nobody asking the commission? And this is something people should remember. When you point at a broken toilet, a teacher shortage, a school without adequate facilities, or children being denied proper access to education, you are not necessarily asking for something extraordinary. You may be asking the government to do what the law already requires it to do. Why don't we demand accountability? How have we normalized subpar facilities provided by the government? How are we not angry about the sheer lack of accountability when the government fails to meet even its basic responsibilities? How did we become so accepting of a system that is failing our children and yet we barely question it? And now when people are finally questioning it, the government seems afraid to answer. Instead, orders are being issued to restrict YouTubers and independent creators from entering schools and documenting what is happening inside them. If everything is working as it should, then why be afraid of people looking? Why is that when people raise their voice, when parents ask questions, when communities demand better schools, the conversation often becomes about whether they are creating trouble? But when the law is not implemented, when schools continue without adequate facilities, when teacher posts remain vacant, and when children lose years of education, where is the urgency then? Why is the failure of a public institution treated as normal, but questioning that failure treated as a problem? A child has only one childhood. A broken road can be repaired. A building can be reconstructed. But what about the years a child spent waiting for a teacher? Waiting for a classroom, trying to study without water, without toilets, or without the support they needed. The right to education law is not just a law sitting inside a government document. It is a promise. So maybe the first step towards accountability is simple. Read the law. Know what the government is supposed to provide. Know what the local authority is supposed to monitor. Know what your child's school is supposed to have, and then ask the question that every democracy should be comfortable answering. If this is what the law promises our children, why are so many still being denied? Remember, education is not a charity. A classroom is not a favor and a teacher is not a privilege. Safe drinking water and toilet is not a luxury. And a child should not have to protest for the things that were supposed to be guaranteed in the first place. If you like this video and found this informative, please share it with more people and please subscribe to the Newsreel Asia's YouTube channel.